I'm Andrew Willett for A Pro Basketball Show. Follow and subscribe on YouTube, Apple Podcasts, and Spotify, as well as following on social media at APBShow on Twitter and Instagram. Be sure to follow me as well at TheACWillett22. Thank you so much for tuning in, and without further ado, hello and welcome to A Pro Basketball Show. Today we are going to talk about a team that has really been on the downslide here recently in the WNBA season. Well, I feel at this point in the year, the WNBA up and up and up. All-Star Weekend just happened. Everyone's feeling good. Everyone's happy. But for this one team out in La La Land, LA, the City of Angels, the Sparks are not doing too hot. And to talk about all of that, I am bringing on none other social media manager and writer covering the LA Sparks with Winsidr, also an intern at ESPN Los Angeles, and I believe an incoming senior at Chapman University. But so excited to be joined by Imanni Wright. Imanni, how are you? Thank you so much for taking the time.
Of course, yeah. I just know you're special because today is the day after All-Star and I am tired. But I am here. Thank you so much for having me. I'm doing the best that I can right now.
We are so appreciative of you for taking the time. I can't imagine kind of the back and forth between doing all the work that you do even before All-Star Weekend, going and covering and being there for All-Star Weekend, and now back here taking the time on my show. So thank you so much, Jen. But I mean, as we start to get into the Sparks, it's not it. We kind of die down a little bit more. I'd even say, even from as tired as we might be right now. So with LA, kind of where do the Sparks stand right now?
They're not standing pretty great. Honestly, not to a fault of their own. They've had a weird situation with injuries. I know Coach Miller actually tweeted recently that in his 19 years of coaching, that he has never seen anything like that before. So for me, I am just like, I just pray that they all stay healthy, and that they can be competitive, because when they are healthy, they are super competitive. But there's some good news. Laisha Clarendon was activated yesterday. And so that's good. Laisha, they're coming off of a foot injury, so they'll be back. Unfortunately, that means Destiny Henderson, who contributed some really good minutes to the Sparks, her contract was terminated. But who knows, with the way that the season has been going, we may see someone get waived and Henny get picked up on a full contract because of the minutes that they produced. You just never know. But for LA, I'm sure on their side, it's been hectic, it's been crazy, it's been unprecedented issues with injuries. So, but they're trying their best with what they got.
Are we all out here at this point in time? I mean, WNBA season, it's kind of hard to believe that we are halfway through. But the last time I really dove in depth on the LA Sparks, it was honestly, I'm gonna take it back a step further in the preseason. Imani, when I was talking about this Sparks team, it was the one team where I just felt like I couldn't get a feel for where they were. And I feel like that team now for me is Dallas. I am just baffled by who they are. Some nights they look great, some nights not so much. But with the Sparks, I just didn't know. And I had them, they were last in my power rankings coming into the year. And boy, was I wrong. I admitted that wholeheartedly about 4 or 5 games into the season. I actually admitted that after night one, where they blow the doors off Phoenix, and I'm just like they just looked as competent as they could be out there with Kurt Miller taking over the reins. And since then, we've seen this team. They looked fine, leading all the way up to those 2 wins over Dallas, and then the 6-game losing streak. So I think this is definitely not the worst team in the WNBA by any means. We'll say that much. But was there almost an overreaction to how good they could be, or do you really think a lot of this kind of lies on the injuries that have affected LA?
I most definitely think it most definitely is the injuries that has affected a lot of this. And also too, it's a newer team. A lot of them, yes, they had training camps together, but a lot of them haven't all played together in a while. And honestly, too, like they have a new head coach, they have a new GM. There's a lot of new that surrounds them. And I think with that, a lot of times, sometimes people are a little too hard on teams like that when there is a new head coach and there is new front office people. Honestly, sometimes it could take teams up to a year to get up to where people think they should be. Obviously, they have the personnel. They have Carly Samuelson, they have Nneka Ogwumike, who's an all-star. They have Chene, they have lots of great players, and they're starting. You could tell before everybody started to get hurt that the cohesion was there. It's just it got a little messed up due to injuries and due to the lineups consistently changing and due to inserting new people like Ray Burrell came back and then Nia Clouden and lots of other people who got signed onto hardship contracts or who got signed full time. So it's just there's a lot that has happened. There's been a lot of moving pieces, a lot of moving parts. So I think that also plays a part in why the team hasn't been able to kind of live up to what people's expectations are.
So, and I felt like you mentioned all the new that was kind of my premise behind, hey, like I don't know what to expect out of this team. And I think that like it would take some time. Obviously, you did a new head coach moving from Connecticut over to LA, new pieces. And I was also like the injuries to Stephanie Talbot and Katie Lou Samuelson before any of the injury issues have just attacked the Sparks this season. That made me really cautious about this team. But I still didn't expect to see quite as good of a team as we saw to start this year. Where I think at their peak, they really are a top 5, 6 team in the WNBA. It's just really unfortunate that we have not been able to see it. And especially, I mean, I think the injuries is a great thing to point to, as to why this team has been unable to really find that peak. But during the 6-game losing streak, is there anything that stood out to you in terms of like similarities between these losses? Because when I go back and I looked at some of the stats for each of these games, it was like, hey, uh, and this isn't their strong suit nonetheless, but each of the 6 games, they only once they shoot above 31% from three. And I believe they were outscored points in the paint all but one time, and they tied points in the paint that time. I just think that's not a great place to start. But what are you noticing in these losses?
Yeah, for sure. I think scoring most definitely is an issue. It tends to be in the second quarter where it seems like they come out they come out really hot, and then the second quarter they kind of cool off. And also the third quarter as well. They seem to struggle. But I most definitely agree in terms of 3-point shooting without having Lexi Brown. Also Jasmine Thomas is coming off ACL injury. She's a sharpshooter as well. But solely relying on Carly Samuelson isn't going to help the team. And she obviously just got injured and she's coming back off of an injury now with the break. So it's like there's a lot of things that contribute to that. Also too, it's just I think again playing with each other, knowing where people like to shoot from, their spots, all those types of things as well, I think also contributed to why there are scoring droughts, is because
Mm.
a lot of them aren't used to playing with each other. They don't know what positions they're good at. They don't know what shots. Okay, they don't know that Nneka likes to shoot from the elbow if that's like her favorite spot. You know what I mean? They don't know those things yet until you start playing with
Mhm.
them. And you can only do so much in practice that emulates the actual game.
And I think that's just kind of an underrated factor, the chemistry, because you can't calculate it. But another one is just like when you have a lineup of even if one person is just a little bit worse than the rest of them, that's going to stand out. It's going to hurt the rest of the team. And for this LA team, they're having to plug and play different holes in the roster just due to injuries all the time. So it makes sense that they're running into a lot of those issues. I know, like you mentioned, the offense hasn't been great, and the defense, kind of a Kurt Miller calling card, has also not been great during the 6-game stretch. But that's also something that you can bank on chemistry for. So I don't know, like it's a really tough spot for LA to be in, and especially to play some good competition during this stretch where they play the Aces, they play Atlanta, who's starting to really look good, Chicago, who after you didn't know what was going to happen with this Sky season. They pull off a few wins in a row. But just like different games like that, the one concerning loss for me in the stretch is Phoenix, where they take care of Phoenix twice to start the season, and then their last matchup they lose, I believe, by 6 points. But why were they unable to pull out the victory against the Mercury?
I think for them, again, lots of injuries still, people are still out. And then also too, I think it's a matter of you're playing a team for the third time this season. That's not easy. That's not something that is easy to do to beat a team three times. And also too, Phoenix was just on that night. I mean, there's honestly not a lot you can do when BG is going off in the paint and and everybody else is playing well for Phoenix. There isn't really much you can do. And also too, like at that point when you're playing a team for the third time, you kind of figured out defensively, offensively what they're good at, what they can do. And with the roster that was available that night, I think Coach Miller did the best that he could with the personnel that he did have to compete that night. And honestly, the competitiveness grew as the game went on. Honestly, they only lost by 6, but I know they were down significantly at one point. So I think that they did the best that they could with what they had. And again, it's difficult to play a team for the third time.
It is just such a bummer that it's almost being ripped away. You mentioned BG. I mean, just how awesome it was to see her at All-Star Weekend. We'll throw that out there. I'm not going to ask you a whole bunch of All-Star questions because we're going to have that episode here soon with someone else. But we'll get to that later. I'll ask you maybe like what your favorite part of the weekend is was at least. But back to the Sparks. Yeah, it's got to be tough to go up against a team three times in a row, especially when that team has Brittany Griner on it. So I mean that doesn't help. I, I mean I I'm hopeful for this LA Sparks season. Is there still reason for optimism during this season?
I think so too, especially with Leisha, they're coming back. I'm sure within the next couple of weeks. Chene will probably be better as well. She's been out with a foot injury. And so I think well, slowly as the season progresses, I think more faces will start to come back and we'll start to have more of a familiar lineup back from the beginning of the season when the team was doing really well.
That would be fantastic because right now they're kind of in this glut of teams. So there really is I don't know the numbers right now, but a very short list of teams above 500 right now, and you've got a section of teams right there below them who are definitely vying for a playoff spot. I think LA very well if they can get some of those spaces back there. That would be very positive. Speaking more on a positive note, I'm going to go over to Neto Dumake because best player over there for the Sparks and is having one heck of a season. I mean those stats they pop off the page at you, but I think also just playing like a great brand of basketball and really efficient as well. What are the highlights from Neto Dumake so far? Halfway through the season, I believe.
Yeah, I think for NECA, like Coach Miller has spoke about this a couple times, but she's playing at her own pace. She's
Mm.
one of those people that have been at the league for in a while now that can play at their own pace and play at their own speed. And I think you most definitely can see that with her scoring numbers, her shooting numbers. She's great at decision making. She's great at being inclusive of her teammates. And also too, her connection with Erica Hamby on the high-low post. Also when as a raisin as well. That's been great. And honestly, I think for NECA, it's just like she's playing. Honestly, I know Coach Miller mentioned this, and I think so as well. She's playing at the same level that she did when she won Most Valuable Player. So I'm really excited to see. She played really well in the All Star game as well, and had some fun with Enrique Gumawale, which was hilarious. So
That
I
was so
think
funny.
yeah, so I think for her, she's just having fun with it and she's just enjoying her season. And also too, it's kind of cool for her. She has Shanae again with her right by her side. So I think that's helpful as well. And I think for her, it's just playing the game her way.
She's so like such a natural post player and really, really good down there. And having a special season as I mean, Kurt Miller has a lot of great quotes because we really haven't seen a team be injury riddled like this. And Neto Dumate is back to playing some of the best basketball that she's played in her whole career, and that's saying a lot because she's been an MVP in this league. So, I mean, awesome that she's there. As for another player who I thought had a great start to the season, but I'm starting to have a little cause for concern with the illness, and that's Lexi Brown. Just a 3-point sniper. But really, I gave some consideration on like on my All-Star roster, like maybe. But LA had a slew of players who I think could have fit into that. Like maybe they catch one of those last few spots. But yeah, are you starting to get concerned about Lexi being out with the illness or?
Yeah, honestly, I was extremely concerned. I actually asked Coach about it in one of the press conferences. And he told me that she's been with the team. She was at the game, the home game versus the Aces on the bench. So she's present. And he was telling me also too that she has been around for about a couple weeks now,
Huh.
with the team and everything. But again, there was no specifics in terms of what exactly was going on with Lexi. And I'm just glad she's doing better. I'm glad she's around the team still. And I'm glad that she also released a statement and talked about how, you have to take care of yourself before, your body takes care of you, and kind of sits you down. So
Uh-huh.
I think for her, it might have been a fatigue thing. It might have been like she was pushing herself a lot. She was, maybe pushing herself a little too hard and got sick. Because that's happened to me. So I'm sure that it might have been something similar to that. But who knows? Again, they haven't been super specific. I'm only speculating, but that's kind of what I got, at least from her statement and from when I did ask Coach Miller about it, what he kind of said in response.
That's interesting. And being back with the team tells you one thing, like maybe like fatigue for sure plays a part in that, but also you gotta like ramp back up. And I mean, no one likes a summer illness. That's no fun in the summer. But yeah, definitely been there with the didn't sit from just doing entirely too much. She's asking a lot from herself, but has been playing great basketball. Right there with Neta, a bright piece. Just would love to see her out there a little more often. Another player who it says I just we're just staying positive right now. As we're hopeful for Lexi, Jordan Canada. I mean, and Jordan Canada is a player where I didn't know I was not super high on her heading into the year, and it's because of that jump shot. She's starting to knock down that jumper a little bit more. She still has that great speed. The defense is off the charts. Like it's just fun to watch her play defense. But Jordan Canada, how has she been improving and taking those positive strides as the starting point guard of this team?
I think Jordan Canada honestly came into the season with a chip on her shoulder. Like, hey, I'm Jordan Canada. Yes, I can play defense, but also like I can get buckets. And I think she most definitely has done a great job of doing that. She's a very efficient player and one of the top, if I'm not mistaken, she's one of the top players in the league in terms of steals. So I think for her, she's just been balling out of control. I can say that. But also she's learned how to harness and use her speed and take advantage of different rates of speed. She's not playing at like, just super going downhill and at one speed. She's been able to use the hezzy cross. She's been able to get to the basket and absorb the contact. So I think that's what's helped Jordan honestly take the game to another level. Not only that, but also too, she's been a leader. Zaya Cook has mentioned multiple times how Jordan has told her, hey, shoot the ball, hey, be aggressive, and all these things. So I think honestly for
Mm.
Jordan, she came into this year like, hey, I'm JC, I'm the point guard of this team, and I'm going to lead the team to the best of my ability. And I felt like that's what she's been doing.
And let me do this right, balling out of control. I love that. Yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, Jordan Canada, hoofing out here. I mean, I love the description, the change of pace. Like it's one of the best in the WNBA. And her ability to get downhill, and when she gets that going with the jumper, I mean, that's awesome. And I've been running a Kurt Miller led team where he doesn't really ask a whole lot of his point guards, but if they can chip in that extra amount, which we know Jordan Canada can, that can be really positive for LA and Kurt Miller. But staying at the point guard position, I think you mentioned Jasmine Thomas a little bit there, but how has she recovered for the Sparks team?
Yeah, I think she's a great addition again. She is one of those people that Coach Miller just beams about. And for all the right reasons. Jasmine Thomas also is an additional three-point shooter that I think will, as the season continues, will start to warm up a little bit more. She's coming off of the torn ACL, which is not an easy injury to come off of.
To say the least.
Yeah, I did get a chance to talk to her the first game she played after the game, and she told me that she felt like she was winded, she was tired, but she was extremely happy to be back out there. And I think as the year progresses and as she gets more acclimated to the team and everything, I think that she'll be a great piece. And I think honestly, if the Sparks can inch into the playoffs, I think she'll be a key part of that. Her and JC, and along with Nneka, Azrae, Dearica, Carly as well, and basically the whole team. I think once they're all back together, I think that will most definitely help push them to the next level and the level that Coach Miller knows that they can play at.
Well, and I mean, speaking of the injuries, because it's off the charts, the number of injuries. Before we finish up that point guard position, I feel like the 3-point shooting that Jasmine Thomas that would have been really helpful to Kurt Miller's Connecticut Sun teams last year when she went down with that torn ACL. And I think like the 3-point shooting on the win, especially for the squad. And I know Kurt Miller's talked a little bit about kind of just the amount of players that have gone down on the win for this team, to where like a Carly Samuelson, who is out now, but has played just a huge role. But Stephanie Talbot, Katie Lou Samuelson, and Jasmine Thomas, three crucial 3-point shooters. Where like Jasmine Thomas, we're just lucky that she's coming well enough off of this torn ACL for this team. Before I guess we touch on some more wins, we'll wrap up the point guard spot. Destiny Henderson, like you said, played really good minutes for this LA team. The 118-point night against Dallas in the win was incredible to watch, and also just like WNBA Twitter was soaking it up, having some fun. But unfortunately didn't like wrap up her tenure as well as I think she would have liked. Shot around 10% from 3-point range, but just didn't have it going like that. What were some takeaways that you could take from Destiny Henderson's time in LA?
Yeah, I think honestly, Henny fit really well into the offense. It seemed like it was seamless almost. And honestly, I think it was really cool to see her play with Zaya. I think for Henny, it was a similar thing. Like I mentioned earlier, the only person she's played with is Zaya. So for her trying to get used to playing with Dearica, Azrae, Nneka, Chene when they were, all healthy and everything, which they are all healthy, but except for Chene. But either way, like I think for her is just trying to get used to figuring out like, okay, how do I contribute? But at the same time, how do I not overdo it? I know Coach Miller was saying that he wanted the game to come to her a little bit more. And I think Henny is trying to find that balance. Okay, when do I attack and when do I distribute? And being a point guard in this league, it is difficult to decipher, okay, when do I take over and when do I, step back and, help hit the hot hand, or when do I distribute more to the post, or like there's just a lot of moving pieces. And I think for Henny, she did the best she could with the amount of time that she had. And honestly, Henny deserves to be in the league, just like a lot of other people. But I think she proved that within the small amount of time that she did have playing with the Sparks. But again, it's not easy to come into a team. But again, I feel like Henny did the best they could with the time that they had. So.
Very, very true. Unfortunate that she's still left without a roster spot at this point, but had some real bright moments over with the Sparks. But Legia Clarendon, they are coming back, and I love to see that. I was kind of surprised that she wasn't around the W as much the last couple of seasons, and then equally as surprised and happy that she was back on a roster with Kurt Miller this year in LA, and had some good moments to start the season, and really her going down with that injury 4 to 6 weeks definitely did not help this roster as kind of when I mentioned kind of the lack of a win over there, they were playing 3 yards at times, which I was a big fan of. Leisure goes down, and that it's a little bit tougher. So Leisure Clarendon, what are they going to bring to this squad?
I think they bring veteran presence and leadership. Also, I think defensive prowess. And if you need a bucket, Lay is going to get you a bucket.
All
So
right.
I think that I most definitely think the leadership is key from Lay, especially playing with Zaya and also, other people who may be newer to the league, like, or even just being encouraging to Ray Burrell, who's still on the team as well. I think that's most definitely what they bring. Is just having that experience, knowing what it's like to not be on a team and all those things, I think helps in terms of just morale and keeping things going. And also, again, from a leadership standpoint.
So and I keep just coming back to this because it was part of my concerns heading into the year, but the lack of win depth for this squad and the injuries. And I think that also affects the shooting where I have it pulled up here. 15 or I think it was 42% from the field and 31% from three, both 11th in the league as well as 11th in effective field goal percentage and true shooting percentage. So for this LA squad, is there a shooting deficit? Is that a large part of the problems? Or do you just think that's like more injury based where they can't find their flow on offense? They can't. That's going to help them get some easier shots. And the same thing with some of your better shooters are out with injuries.
Yeah, I most definitely again chalk it up to injuries, unfortunately, but also to chemistry, like I mentioned earlier. Again, a lot of these people, everybody's new. There's a lot going on. De'Erica's new, Azare's new. So I mean, and those are like they're two starters, two crucial parts of the team. So I think that and Lay's new too. So it's just like there's a lot going on in terms of newness. They had to learn a new system. They also are playing for a new coach. And so I think again, I chalk it up to the chemistry. I chalk it up to also just injuries and dealing with different lineups. But I think when the sparks are on, they're on. And I think I feel like the second half of the season, once everybody's healthy, I think a lot of people are going to be surprised in terms of what they're able to accomplish.
And I brought up Carly Samuelson. I like everyone knows that she is a bucket out there for the Sparks. Incredible 3-point shooter, very good for the floor spacing on this roster. That's why she started a lot of games. Out with an injury in the last game, hopefully back here shortly. But also kind of the lack of wins, having to rely on Charlie Samuelson. You've seen some three big lineups with Azare, De'Erica, and Neka. How do you think that works in terms of kind of the spacing out on the court? I know Azare, De'Erica, and Neka can all space it out well enough, but it does clog the lane a little bit when it comes to the Sparks.
Yeah, I most definitely agree. It does clog the lane a little bit, but as the season has progressed, I've noticed that they've been able to figure each other out a little bit more. And I even think putting Azare at the four has been super beneficial to the team. And moving Neka a little bit outwards or De'Erica outwards, I think has worked well as well. Because Neka can shoot the three if she has
Mm.
to. So I think that's been beneficial to the team. And I think it's worked on occasions. Sometimes it does, sometimes it doesn't. But I think when it doesn't work is when there's lack of communication or again getting used to playing with people that you've kind of never really played with before and figuring out each other's spots. Which again, figuring out each other's spots has gotten better as the season progresses. But again, just being able to communicate and not clogging up the lane so they don't get in each other's way.
Yeah, you mentioned the high low, which is awesome at points. And I also think it's super helpful to be able to have one big spacing the floor, able to knock down the three while the other occupies the lane. But I was a fan of those 3 guard lineups. I'm curious for you though. Obviously we've outlined the top team or the top weakness of this team just being the health, the availability. But at full strength for this roster, what do you kind of see the lineup coming out as? What constructions do you think is best for this squad?
Yeah, honestly, when it's Carly, NECA, Jordan, Dearica, and Z, I think is the best one. And then honestly, obviously when Lexi gets healthy, inserting her in there as well. But I think though that's probably the best lineup, using Lexi and Carly interchangeably, I think has been super helpful when they were all healthy because there's always a 3-point threat on the floor. And that helps with spacing in terms of NECA getting to the post, along with Erica getting to the post, and Z getting to the post as well. So I think for that, probably for me, is my favorite lineup. Also, too, they are very capable of getting up and down the floor, pushing the ball. And defensively, I think they they work well as a unit defensively.
And I mean, of course, they're going to Netta and Azrae Stevens and De'Arthur Hamby out there all at the same time with a Jordan Canada pressuring the perimeter. I mean, that's a recipe for success on defense. So I like that. I am intrigued by some lineups, maybe with Lasia Clarendon in there as a third guard with Carly and Jordan Canada. I mean, gosh, how have we missed this? But Zaya Tillett, her rookie year, that's what we talked about last time with the rookies. Last time you were on the show, how has her rookie year shaped up since? I mean, she was just blowing the doors off everybody at that point. How's it been for Zaya?
I think for Zaya, it's just again, Zaya has literally no fear, and I love that for her. But coming into the games, I think it's just Zaya's decision making sometimes can lack, but that's not because she's not a good basketball player. It's because literally it's her first year in the league. So it's like I'm not gonna be like,
Yeah,
oh, but you know what
yeah.
I mean? Like so, and even Coach Miller has spoken about this, how he has always been impressed with Zaya, even before he drafted her. And saying that he loves the tenacity that she does have and the no fear that she does have. And I think that really serves her well in terms of kind of, even if she does miss a shot, she's playing hard on defense. She's always thinking next play, next play, next play, and not really kind of sitting and pouting about anything. So I think that's what serves her well, is her fearlessness and just honestly kind of having forward thinking at all times.
But we're hopeful for this LA Sparks squad as the season comes down to a close. Because we've seen what this team can be at its peak. We talked about that off the bat, where this team has been underachieving, and in large part due to the injuries that they've faced. Hopefully they get healthy. Hopefully we get to see that come through. But Imani, I did ask you one more thing, which was if you could make any trades, we're to have just a little bit of fun here on a pro basketball show, and not you don't have to tell me who you're trading away, but who would you like to see maybe fit in on this Sparks squad? Because I've got a few tiers where I just went through and was like, okay, if we're dreaming about a star coming in here, because it's LA, of course, that's what you're going to be doing, or maybe a better win depth piece on the line. But who do you see as a potential trade target or even free agency acquisition moving forward?
Honestly, I think the team should go after Kalia Copper, but that's just me.
All right.
I think Kalia would be able to bring, Kyle would be able to bring so much depth to the team. And honestly, I think her playing with Lexi and Jordan and just the speed that the team would have
Oh my
would
gosh.
be insane. So I think Kyle would be a good pickup. And like you said, somebody else that is a free agent that can come in and bring depth in terms of 3-point shooting, I think would be great. But I think Kyle would be a good person that I think the team should look at. especially with the situation in Chicago with Coach Wade leaving abruptly. And I don't know what her relationship is with the interim head coach right now. But I think they most definitely should pursue Ka in free agency.
No, that's a great name. I mean, on my short list of kind of the stars because like I said, Kurt Miller coming to LA, you're gonna want to build a team around Netta, and you're gonna need more stars in order to compete. Obviously, as shown by the Aces and the Liberty. So I mean, I've Talia Topper on there. I looked at like I don't know, maybe Jackie Young wants to step out and do a little bit more. Skylar Diggins Smith, Arike Dumbawa, Jewel Lloyd as I guess she did just sign that extension, but still, yeah, we did have some fun over here. I think some other names like Mariah Jefferson, Marina Mabry, even like I think we all kind of want to see Marine Johannes step into kind of a starting role and see what she can do at being asked that much. But yeah, there are definitely some other wins for this season. I look at like an Aerial Powers, Tia Nurse, if Seattle decides to, hey, let's that would be a great shooting piece, as well as like maybe a Sammy Whitcomb. But just some different names like that I looked at, and I think for LA, where with kind of a hole on the win, they've got a lot of bids, a lot of guards. Makes a little bit of sense. What do you think about any of those?
I think Sammy Whitcomb would be a great addition, especially from the three-point shooting department. And also I think Kia Nurse as well. She can shoot, she can drive, she can do a little bit of everything. And that gives them length and height as well. So I think they'd be a great addition as well.
All right, before I ditch you out of here, I did want to know a favorite story from All-Star Weekend since you were just there in Las Vegas.
Yeah, honestly, it was just meeting all the other W media people. That was probably the highlight of my whole weekend. Was just meeting everyone and kind of just be like, oh, you're a real person. That's crazy. So that
Wait a
was super
second, where's your
cool.
Twitter icon? Hold
No,
on.
exactly. So that was a pretty cool experience. Honestly, just meeting everybody and everybody who showed me love and was just like so nice. Like, oh, they were just like, oh, I know your work. I'm just like, what? You know my work. So that was also crazy. So, but that was probably the highlight of my whole W experience this weekend with All Star.
That's wonderful. Congrats to you for making that trip. And Imani, thank you so much for taking the time joining the Pro Basketball Show. It was a pleasure having you on.
Thank you for having me again. I appreciate it.
Thank you so much for tuning in. As always, make sure to follow and subscribe to the show on YouTube, Apple Podcasts, and Spotify. Make sure to follow on Twitter and Instagram at APBShow and follow me at the AC Willett 22. Thank you so much for tuning in for a Pro Basketball Show. I am Andrew Willett.